Thank you everybody for being here. So we'll get started. Uh, Before we really get into the topic, right, I want to first quickly talk about what good looks like in hyper-personalization. A lot of us use this app. I'm sure we're all like very, very familiar with this interface. Starbucks, right? Known to be one of the best in terms of hyper-personalization, right? They have a fully integrated CDP. They have what they call as a loyalty program, which is powered by the CDP, right? Which provides like really hyper personalized offers. So just to see an example of what this is able to like provide to this individual Kimberly, right? So first of all, it uses geo targeting to know who it can target who are near its stores. Secondly, looks at what kind of Okay. Secondly, looks at personalization based on, let's say, the geographic conditions, right, which is the weather, the taste of the customer, the past activity of the customer, and really provides an offer. In this case, a cold brew, right, which is a good match for the weather that Kimberly is right now in, and also based on what she has bought in the past, right. It doesn't just stop there, right? It also motivates her to go and sort of redeem the offers, right? And it keeps track, it incentivizes her, and then make sure that she's able to do all of this. In fact, what they have is they really have a deep learning algorithm, right, which looks at all of the customer touch points, which integrates all of the data, the behavioral, the geographical, the temporal, any kind of data that you can assume, and actually generates about 10 billion personalized recommendations a year through which it sort of targets the customers. Right. Second example, again, something that all of us use every day, at least most of us, right? Amazon. One thing that while Starbucks has really perfected personalization based on all of this, Amazon has really perfected the art of nudging, right? So they know that this individual, Priya, has actually looked for books by Emily Henry, right? So even though the person has not really come to Amazon's website looking for this, they actually send her an email, right? And tell her that, okay, so these are the books that are available. Hi, Priya, why don't you go check out these books? You might be interested in these, right? Then secondly, when there's a Prime Day offer that's coming in, again, they don't lose the opportunity to reach out to Priya and tell her that, look, these are the options that are available. They also make sure that they give you these recommendations over and over and over again, right? And in fact, Amazon's homepage, if you go there, it really looks very, very personalized for you. And in fact, it is. And with every click that you do, with every action that you perform, it actually evolves, right? The homepage evolves and it feels that you're just on the right place that you need to be, which is why customers keep coming back here. So looks all too simple, right? And this statistic to a lot of us as shoppers, as buyers, should look very, very intuitive to me. It does look very intuitive to me. In fact, the only thing that surprises me about this statistic is that it's not higher, right? So, and I am expecting that next year when McKinsey does the same survey, it's going to hit somewhere above 85% is my guess, but the jury is out, right? So what are really the customers sort of saying, right? They're clearly saying like four things, right? Know me, irrespective, before I even know myself, know me, right? They expect people to anticipate, right? Then they expect sort of brands to keep track of what they might want in the future. And then they want really timely messages. They want relevant messages. So why do they want all of these, right? Because they know it's possible. They use Starbucks, they use the likes of Starbucks, they use the likes of Amazon. So they really know all of this is possible, and they start to expect this from every brand that they interact with, right? So that's really the expectation today. So what are brands doing? So brands are really scrambling. They're trying to get all sorts of data from all the places that they can, trying to marry them, look for intent signals, do everything they can to be able to do this. But it's all about the right timing, right? Marketing is all about getting the right messages to the right people in the right way to make sure that you're successful. But then it's not very easy, right? I saw a lot of hands go up when I said, are you marketers? I'm sure if you are a marketer like me, right, you would have seen a lot of this, right? You would have experienced this at some point where you really think you've nailed the intent signals, but you've got it like really, really wrong, right? And why does that happen, right? Because the primary reason it happens is most marketers and most systems that support you to do that marketing actually actually make you think about the journey as linear, right? Whereas in reality, the customer journey is nothing but linear. It is sort of messy, it is unpredictable, you go back and forth across channels, and that's one of the primary reasons why a lot of marketers struggle with this. So the what's really what are they really doing about it, right? A lot of them are implementing CDPs, right? So whether you take it out of the box, whether you implement composable CDPs, whether you do bundled, whether you do your own, or whether you use marketing clouds as your CDPs. So a lot of customers are really going after CDPs, and the market is really growing for CDPs, right? So again, this is a very recent analysis by Market and Market. So about a 40% growth rate through 2028, which is like a phenomenal growth. So again, the trigger for all of this is the evolving customer preferences, right? The explosion of data, a lot of things that's going on the regulatory side. So all of this is sort of driving the demand for CDPs. And this is not new, right? CDP as a topic is not new. We've all talked about CDPs. While there is renewed interest, there is more push right now. CDPs have been around for at least a couple of decades now, right? So, but still, only 17%, right? Which means a huge 83% still are struggling to find value from their CDPs, right? Uh, we'll talk more about why they are doing this. In fact, the whole session is about why 83% marketers are still struggling with their CDPs. But before I get into the topic, just a very quick introduction. My name is Shanthi. I've been in data analytics and AI for about 2 decades now, helping customers derive value from data-driven initiatives. I currently head marketing at InfoCepts. So we are a data and AI solutions firm. Been in the business for over 20 years, helped many, many customers successfully implement CDPs, been through their journeys, and we've also, and in my role and as a company, we are in our own journey to implement our own CDP to be able to reach our customers. So today in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you about some of the common challenges that we faced, that our customers faced in their journey, some we have faced, and talk about how we can overcome those. So essentially, the whole crux of today's discussion about these 6 reasons, right, that we think why CDPs today are sort of failing, right? So there are they say there are about 160 CDP products in the market, which are available for customers to choose from. And then it is also, the survey also has found that on an average, enterprise customers use about 2.2 CDPs, right? Invest in about 2.2 CDPs. That statistic is a little funny to me because a CDP by definition is supposed to be a single customer view. So what's with a 2.2 single customer view, right? So we'll come to that in a little bit more. In fact, my number 4 is all about the 2.2 CDP, right? We'll talk more about that, but in the rest of the session, we'll be focusing on each one of these issues and talk about some solutions on how we can resolve those. Step 1, do you know your customer, right? A CDP's main purpose is to help you know who your customer is, right? But why is this really complex, right? Your customers can come from a variety of places, right? Variety of channels, variety of platforms that you gather data from. So it's easier said than done, right? Especially for organizations who've grown organically, starting with one channel, which is the physical store channel, and then sort of diversified into some of the other channels. This is a lot more harder, which is the reality of the day to day, right? Nobody has started like 2 years ago once AI came and then thought about all the channels in one go. Nobody has really done that. Nobody's that's not reality, right? The reality is everybody has grown very organically, and even within all of the channels, all of the data channels that you have within your company, companies still struggle to establish that single customer view, right? And the user journeys, I think we talked a little bit about it. People usually start off as an anonymous user, browses through a product on a website. At that point, you don't even know who that individual is, right? And then at some point, the person also goes to social, finds some ad, responds to ad. Again, at that point, you don't know much about that individual yet. Only at a point where that individual comes, adds to your cart, and starts to sort of put in their personally identifiable information, which is either their email address or phone number, you start to understand who that customer is. And then for you to be able to marry it with everything that the customer has done before that point and everything that the customer is doing after that point, right, is no easy task, right? Which is why knowing your customer is hard, right? And then your event semantics, what was the trigger and what was the reaction, right? Again, it's not very easy to sort of identify those, and unless you know what triggered what, how will you sort of replicate your successes, right? So that's another reason. We talked about with, without PII. So I think the first thing, right, that we sort of advise customers when we help them on CDP journeys is how do you create that enterprise definition, right? First, it's about defining who your customer is across your various channels. For example, your contact center talks to your customer, right? Your website sort of relays some information to your customer. Your social channels relay something to your customer, right? So all of these channels, how are you going to unify and create one definition of your customer that all your departments, all your functions within your organization agree to that one definition of customer, right? One thing is having a CDP, right, which technically gives you all of that, but having that definition, we believe, is primary, and organizations that have established that definition have been more successful, right? Again, companies use different ways to do it, right? Some companies are very intentional about collecting customer data. Sometimes brands sort of struggle between lowering the bar to getting a customer to do an action versus not knowing the customer. So that's the trade-off that you have to look at. For example, if you look at Netflix, one of the companies that we think is on the forefront of personalization, they are very intentional about collecting customer data, right? You cannot do anything on the Netflix platform without really providing your PII information. This, again, may not apply to a lot of brands. For example, a retail brand may not be able to do that. A retail brand, especially when they are new, they may not be able to do that. But you have to be intentional at some point about collecting customer data. One of my personal experiences has been, a lot of these smaller retail brands allow you to start adding things to your cart without even getting your data. So I've gotten into a false sense of security. Okay, I've added the product that I wanted. So next time when I go back, but it's gone, because they let me add that product into that cart without even taking my customer data, which I did not realize at that point. But later on, when I go back, I didn't find that. So that's not great customer experience. While the point of entry was easy for me, I still didn't get what I want, right? So you need to be very intentional about creating that data. 3, not everything is based on PII data. So a lot of times you need to use like very sophisticated probabilistic methods to derive, and they could be wrong. You need to also put in a validation process, which is what I call as the identity ladder, where you start to differentiate between what is deterministic versus what is not so deterministic, and then be able to sort of marry that and start moving more and more towards that deterministic ones as you go along. So again, a lot of this relates to the process. Your CDP tools will be enablers, but unless you're intentional about thinking about each one of these points in terms of the processes, the supporting systems, the supporting governance around it, these are not going to happen by default. The second important item is quality data. Very relevant in any data-driven initiatives, but more, but most relevant when it comes to CDP, right? Again, your the intent signal cartoon that we saw, right? That could happen if you don't have the right kind of data. So, some statistics about what poor data quality is costing organizations and what is the cost of poor data quality, right? Again, if some of you have been involved in data-driven initiatives, these might sort of seem very, very intuitive to you. But why is data quality in customer data really hard, right? Because you're not just dealing with, unlike other data-driven initiatives where you're doing analytics from your ERP, where you're doing analytics on your POS systems, etc. A lot of data is very, very structured, right? But when it comes to the domain of customer data, you're dealing with not just structured, not just semi-structured, but even a lot of unstructured data, right? So that's the reason why it's extremely hard. And for any data quality efforts, especially when you're doing data quality in your ERP data, right? The first recommendation a lot of us would have heard is put quality at source, right? Stop. Stop people from entering bad quality data right at the source. But that's not something you can do with customer data, right? You don't have all the context up front to be able to push for that change, which means you will have to implement that quality at some point later on by looking at multiple sources and then be able to bring that quality in. And because you're integrating with like tens of systems, right? Some companies even do hundreds, but let's not take that scenario. But 10, 20, 30 systems integration to get your CDP is not very uncommon. And if you are integrating with so many systems, you can anticipate a lot of faults, changes in those systems, which could ultimately impact you. And as a CDP owner, if you are a CDP owner, you need to be cognizant of those and be able to change those. And as you know, things keep changing, a very evolving data, so you need to keep updating your data on a regular basis. So how can you really do something, right? Here is an example of how enriching data, right? Enriching the data that you get from your customers through your PII or something can really help you sort of improve and make your target audiences that much more precise, right? For example, if you just had data from your website store and emails, you could just get like very, very basic target audiences where you're looking at a funnel view of what a customer is doing on a certain platform, and then you're reaching out with your campaigns. Versus if you are able to enrich it with a lot of other behavioral, temporal, demographical, and a lot of other data from your systems, you're able to get more and more precise target audiences using which you can really like target your campaigns. For example, if someone who's not engaged, sending a campaign to that person, a messaging for that campaign has to be very different from when you're sending someone who's likely to purchase, right? Unless you're able to create these very, very specific target audiences, if your CDP doesn't allow you to do that, then you're not going to be able to meet your marketing goals. Secondly, one of the things that we have seen some of our customers who are very successful at managing customer data is companies who are empowering their customers to be able to update their data, right? Are far more successful in terms of keeping the data current versus those that are not. Again, why will customers do that, right? If they will do it, if they know that updating that data will give them a better experience, right? So that way they have more trust. For example, if there's a customer who has like multiple profiles, one from their website, one from social, and then let's say if you're able to surface that discrepancy to them, if you are not able to resolve, but if you're able to surface that discrepancy and probably say, can you confirm if this is you, right? So then they are able to take that, call and then be able to go forward and make that change, right? So that empowerment can really help. And lastly, monitoring, right? The last thing you want is like silent failures. When some data goes wrong and you don't even know, then that's the primary cause of trust erosion. So building the right monitoring and alerting system can really help. Looks like I'll have to move a little faster because of the time, but the third thing is about how well are you able to engage your customers across channels. So again, an example of how complex the customer journey could get, right? In the middle, these are all the different channels they interact with. Then what are the kinds of responses? And if you have to take some actions on these responses, right, and be able to reach that customer, there are like a number of different possibilities, and you'll have to integrate a number of these data points to be able to do that, right? So, so essentially, I'll get to the solutions, right? Uh, the the biggest thing that can help, right, in being able to do this, to be able to align your teams, is can you create like a customer journey and start to plot which teams sort of come in at what points in that customer journey, right? So their responsibilities are very clear. One, they have a very clear picture of what the journey looks like, and two, they are able to understand at what parts, at what points they need to intervene, and how they can take advantage of all the data that's available to be able to respond. Attribution models, extremely important, because it is important to know which touch point, which particular interaction is really sort of causing that trigger for the customer to really move from a interest to move from an exploration to an interest stage and to a next stage, and so on, right? Okay, so this is where I was talking about like the siloed CDPs, right? The 2.2 CDPs that we sort of talked about, right? So your customer data platform, there needs to be a unified view, right? A lot of brands sort of fall into the trap that implementing an out-of-the-box CDP will give them all the right things that they need to do to be successful in their marketing, right? Which is really not sort of true, right? So you need to have that. So you can't have like you can't have like two versions of truth, or a 2.2 versions of truth, right? You need to have a single version of truth. The way I see it is, these out of the box CDPs or MarTech platforms or whatever, they're all sort of cogs in the whole wheel, right? Your enterprise definition of CDP needs to be a lot more comprehensive, right? It can't just be those CDP, off the shelf CDP platforms. You need to make sure that you have a single customer view which comes from all of these places. You need to have a place which does all of your marketing orchestration and your audience activation, right, which reaches all the channels. And more importantly, you need to integrate it with a system of insights, right, and actions. This is, a lot of CDP platforms actually miss this sort of portion. And even if they do it for the specific purpose that they do. For example, if a CDP platform sort of helps you just run campaigns, then it gives you like campaign analytics, right? But that's not the same as your whole marketing analytics, right? Sales and marketing analytics. So that's really important. And especially with AI and new tech that's coming in, you need to be able to constantly test out new things, be very, very agile, and you can't do that unless you have like a dedicated system of AI experimentation and governance, right? So at InfoCepts, we have like okay, before we get there, so to me, this whole thing is what I would call as a customer data platform, and not that out of the box product that you buy, right? That is how I believe you can get like a single customer view that sort of helps. And your purpose of your CDP should be to do two simple things, right? One, bring that single customer view. Two, make that single customer view available to all your upstream and downstream systems and people in a democratized way, right? Everything else that you do in between is just use cases that are supporting this goal, and you need to be able to make sure that those fit in your ecosystem and becomes an integrated CDP platform for you. So at InfoCepts, we have a couple of solutions to be able to support the system of experimentation and the system of insights. So we have a solution called Discovery AI, which enables companies to do end-to-end AI experimentation and governance. I have an example here today, which I may or may not be able to show due to time, but do feel free to drop by the InfoCepts booth. I'll be happy to show it to you guys. And Decision 360 is our system of insights and action, Basically, it creates an enterprise view of how all of your different initiatives are performing. And it doesn't just stop with providing insights, but it actually goes all the way to help you generate actions out of those. So, sorry. The next thing is we're going to talk about AI next. Again, no conversation about hyper-personalization is complete without AI. A relatively new entrant in the game. I think people have been using AI in different ways, but the more democratized way of using AI has just been around the corner to drive this. And there are different initiatives that customers can run if you want to move all the way towards a one-to-one personalization, like the one that I'll probably put the Starbucks, the Amazons, the Netflixes of the world in that last bucket, right? Where they start to do like a predictive personalization. Again, that's the goal for a lot of brands, but it's a journey that one needs to take to be able to go there, right? So how do you really do that, right? I think AI being a new entrant with so many options available, the first thing is you need to be agile about your whole experimentation. So which is what I call as the scalable, flexible technology options that you should look at. Fully managed solutions like the Discovery AI one that I talked about can really help. Then, of course, you need to make sure that your AI systems have the capability to do A/B testing. Make sure it helps you adopt those responsible AI practices, so you can avoid all of those regulatory biases and all of those issues later on. Um, Lastly, are you able to execute at scale? If there are marketers in the room, I'm sure you can relate to this. I relate to this really well, um, right? So the marketing teams are like way too stretched, right? They're trying to achieve so much with so little budget in so little time, right? So, and then combined with all of the silos that exist within the organization, just makes their efforts really hard, right? So I would recommend an integrated marketing operations model, which is what I would call, which integrates all of the data, people, process, technology, organization. Again, easier said than done, but making sure that all of this sort of comes together is really important for the success of any marketing initiative, right? And then important to have a feedback loop and all of that. So your technology really fits. A lot of your technology actually fits there, right? But there is a lot more beyond technology to be able to sort of do that. So what does it mean, right? Just to elaborate a little bit on what that integrated marketing operations model is, you can consider it as something like this, right? For you to implement any of those 6 things we talked about, right? The recommendations and any of the 6 things we talked about, you need to bring all of these together, whether it's your workflow management systems, your people who are responsible for delivery model, data quality, governance, or your infrastructure, customer 360 as a technical solution can be one of those. But that's not all, right? It's a cog in the wheel, right? And your marketing operations team can really be considered as a pit in the crew in your Formula One race, right? If your Formula One race is your enterprise, right, then these people need to be able to provide very quick, agile interventions for you to really achieve marketing success. And all of these systems, whether your systems of implementation, your systems of experimentation, insights, everything sort of plays a very critical role in that. So here is an example. Again, we are done. We are out of time, so I'll invite you to sort of meet me at the booth. We are at Y306. I also have my colleague's session, Vishal Lad, who's going to be talking about how to do AI-enabled transformation at scale. So that session is tomorrow, so I'd invite you to sort of also join that session. He'll talk more, he'll provide more examples as well. And finally, I talked a lot about data quality, data management initiatives, which are critical. So we have Scott Taylor, who's going to sort of talk about how important is data management and how you can enable data storytelling for your organization. So I'd invite you to again join this session. So we don't have time for questions. So I'll say thank you to all of you. Thanks for being here, and do meet me at InfoCepts booth.